Hello! Hi everyone! Welcome to another exciting episode of Guiding Voice podcast series. The Guiding Voice for a Better Future. This is Naveen and I'm with my co-host Sudhakar. Dear listeners, in this episode, we want to captivate you with the hottest topic, digital transformation and the impact of COVID-19 on it.
To talk about this, we have with us a leader who spends a lot of her time on strategizing the digital transformation with some of the big industry leaders, Jyotsna. In the last 25 years of my association with Jyotsna Kuchimunchi, one thing that did not change is her appetite to build relationships and her passion to be a hardcore change agent. As quoted by John F. Kennedy, change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or present are certain to miss the future. Jyotsna is perfectly following this quote and leading by example. Hi Jyotsna, welcome to our podcast series, and we are excited to have you as our guest.
Thanks, Sudhakar. Thanks, Naveen. I think this is a fantastic initiative, and it's a pleasure being on this particular platform. And this personally provides me a great opportunity to connect with the next gen and stay relevant to the industry today.
Thank you, Jyotsna, for taking time.
Thank you, Jyotsna.
Computer science engineer, done her MBA in international business from Symbiosis, and also LLB with specialization in patent law from Nalsar University, Hyderabad. Jyotsna loves to connect with people, customers, prospects, and exchange ideas and views, especially on product solutions that would enhance the customer experience. Jyotsna brings in wealth of experience in designing experiences for digital products and services that are aligned to the organization's vision and strategic priorities. In addition, Jyotsna spends some of her quality time with the startup community in mentoring them. So listeners, Jyotsna has over 20 years of IT industry experience. She started her career as a product manager at Value Labs, headed mobility and scaled up till the rank of Vice President Digital. After her long stint there, she joined Cognizant, where she is currently serving as Digital Transformation Leader.
Jyotsna, got to know from Sudhakar that you always say the simplest way to define you is connect. That's simply captivating. Personally, I'm very glad to connect with you, and I'm sure you will be able to connect with many of our audiences too. Jyotsna, based on your experience as a change leader, can you define what is a change?
See, at a very basic level, if we have to define change, it is all about moving to a future state. Take the example, what is happening in the industry and what is happening in the society today, right? Have you ever imagined that you would probably have to wear a mask before you go out? So change always happens around us, right? Internally motivated. For example, when you look at the companies, they might be coming across increasing costs, decreasing profits. That is one motivation for them to actually change. Or externally motivated, right? Like COVID-19 is one of the case, competition, or even the market disruption, what is happening with Paytms and Google Pays of the world. These are the players that actually motivate certain changes in the organization. Now, while change is common, change management is how do you support these individuals who are affected? Now, who are the individuals who are affected? It could be employees, it could be your vendors, it could be your customers primarily, or it could be even your third-party agents, like you take the claims or you probably take the insurance part of it. You have the agents also. These are some of the people who would typically be impacted by the change. How do you help them transition from the current state to the future state? Just for you to understand it simply, this entire COVID-19 is going to change the way you will function at home, how you work from home, how your maids are going to respond, how you're going to shop, everything. How do you actually, as an ecosystem, change from today's state to a post-COVID-19 situation? Is in simpler words what you can talk about change and change management.
Absolutely. Great insights, Jyotsna. In fact, you touched the very valid points of comparing the current COVID situation versus how can we imagine the future is going to be. This reminds me of a quote, change is the only constant in the world, and the species that is going to adapt to the change is the one which will be most successful. Thanks for those insights. Now, digital transformation has been a buzzword of late. What exactly is digital transformation in your view?
See, before we even get into digital transformation, I think it's important for us to understand what digital is. Digital means different things to different people, right? And there's no concrete definition that you can say this is what digital is all about. In my opinion, digital is all about creating seamless and frictionless experiences. So, for example, if you go to an ICICI bank and you want to, open an account, you probably have a tablet application that would enable you to quickly onboard. This is what you see as a seamless and frictionless experience. But in order for you to actually open an account, there's a lot of things that happen in the background. It is the process automation that actually happens. It is the analytics that would actually tell you that based on your profile, which is the best account that is suited. So essentially, when all the technologies or the integration of digital technologies into the areas of business, fundamentally changing how you're operating and delivering new value to the customers is what I would probably term it as digital transformation.
That's really wonderful. In fact, we are going to experience a lot of new things in the new world when it comes to digital transformation. So I'm really excited to imagine about how the world is going to be in 5 or 10 years from now. Because if you look at certain things, you mentioned about opening an account with tablet, which did not exist 15 years ago. And people used to stand in the queues in order to do some transactions and all. Now everything is happening at the fingertips. So with that in mind, we can definitely imagine how digital transformation is going to transform the world. Thank you.
Jyotsna, now that you explained about digital transformation, can you please share with our listeners on the role of a digital transformation leader?
See, typically a digital transformation leader, we interact a lot with the CXO guys, right? When I say CXO, we are essentially referring to the CEO, CIO, your chief marketing officer, your chief technology officer, and in some of the advanced organization, you also come across the role of a chief digital officer. Now, what do? We essentially look at reimagine the customer experience. We also digitize your products and services and operation. At a very layman term, what we are essentially talking about is most of you might have already gone to e-Seva services provided by the government. So you probably have a birth in your family. So how do you go ahead and register this particular birth and all of that? So if you look at it, it is earlier you probably had to go to a GHMC and there's a whole lot of things that you probably had, or even take the case of, when you're trying to buy a property, you verify the easy part of it. You check whether this particular property is correct. Is it legally okay for you to go ahead and invest? You probably have banks that would actually come and tell you whether this is the right property to invest and so on. So we're essentially talking about multiple components coming together, which is in terms of your products, services, operations. So as leaders, again, we try to answer some of the questions. How can you better interact with your customers? How can you serve your customers better? How do you onboard them quickly, as in the case of ICICI Bank that I was talking about? How can organizations make more money without adding additional costs? See, if you keep on, spending money and then you make additional money, it is not probably viable in the long run if you look at it. How can you compete in the market effectively with the likes of fintech organizations that are coming in? Or let's say electric vehicles are now coming in. How do you stay relevant as an automobile organization? How do you reduce the cost? How do you cross-sell and upsell? So in order, there's a whole gamut of things that we talked about. Now, how do we put a structure to all of this together, right? So what we start is we first of all work with the senior management, try to understand what they are trying to achieve, what are their pain points. More importantly, we win over the workforce. A lot of a time. So, I appreciate Sudhakar asking me this first question about what is a change agent, because a lot of effort in the digital transformation goes into how do you win your workforce altogether? How do you bring in that culture and change? Because if you have done that, believe me, you have already embarked upon the digital transformation journey altogether. And also, as I was saying, digital transformation should always be top-down approach. It should have the buy-in from the top management. As long as they are committed to this particular one, everything else will fall into place. It is also important for us to understand what are the market disruptions that are happening. What is your adjacent markets doing? What is your competition doing, for example? And a lot of these approaches that we have. More importantly, Earlier, if you have remember, a lot of you guys would know, when you look at the case studies, that somebody has embarked upon a data warehouse project. This data warehouse project goes for 3-4 years before you start seeing the result. In today's world, that is no longer possible. You need to start doing iterative. Whatever you pick up, there's no guarantees it is going to succeed. That's perfectly fine. You're going to fail fast. More importantly, you're going to learn fast. How do we do things? And if it doesn't move on, how do you move on to the next initiative? Last but not the least, data is considered to be the new oil. Why is that? Because every organization is trying to use data as an asset, and they're trying to invest more and more into new and disruptive technologies, especially like big data and artificial intelligence, and driving innovation and turning these data assets into their capital. These are some of the work that we do as part of digital transformation.
Thank you, Jyotsna. That was really insightful. So data is the new oil. Digital transformation is something that you need to push down from top, and that helps in two things. One is how can you serve your customers better, and how multiple components are coming together to serve your customers better. That's amazing. Thank you. So we all know that now digital transformation is real, and it is now. It is already driving the business. In these unprecedented times of this COVID-19 situation, there is this saying in the market that COVID-19 has fast forwarded the need of digital transformation. Experts are of the opinion that companies are already expediting the digital transformation initiatives at least 3 years prior to the original plan. In your engagement with the business leaders, what are you seeing as a trend in industry, Jyotsna?
Towards COVID-19 today, right? You have been hearing about some of the organizations going burst in US, and some payloads are actually happening. So there's definitely a panic situation right now with not people going into the shopping malls and all of that. While the early trends definitely are, showing that, there are several digital transformation initiatives that are on a fast track. Primarily, let's look at it from a touchless experience. So I was looking at a video yesterday, which one of my friends had shared, where how do you order at McDonald's is going to change completely. Digital payments and everything done through the glass, everything done through the distance part of. So these kind of a digital onboarding, touchless experience, online ordering. So how many of you guys have already seen your parents suddenly ordered everything from the online portals and everything? Have you observed that for those of you who are actually familiar with Hyderabad, Velanki Foods, I've never seen it somebody delivering that on their own. It is probably available on Swiggy and other channels. But today, Velanki actually set up their own stall in our apartments to ensure that they're able to sell it. So the way the business models are going to come up with, the way the experience is going to be delivered is going to change drastically. And again, in my opinion, so millennials, if you look at it, the likes of you, right? How many have you actually thought about savings and healthcare till date? But I'm sure in the last 2-3 months, all of you are actually thinking about how do you save for the future? How do you invest in your own health? How do you stay fit? How do you ensure that, your parents are healthy, they have the right insurance policies and everything in place? This is the change that we are talking about that COVID has brought in. Now, in terms of the industries, I think there are going to be several industries that you'll start seeing fast track digital initiatives. But in my opinion, healthcare. Have you wondered that, even homeopathy clinics today have started video consultation? That is because they're losing business. They want to stay connected with the patient. And your OPDs are actually closed as of today. So that's one of the reasons people are looking at how do they stay connected. And that's where you're actually going to get into the video consultation. And education, take the case of education itself. Have you ever thought of actually getting into online classes till date? No, in the last 2-3 months, right from your nursery or probably even the first class, you see kids actually in front of the cameras, in front of their laptops, attending these classes. Did we ever imagine that is actually possible? Not really. And then we are also talking about government operations. The standard operating processes, especially for your work from home, is being drafted in India today. Digital operation processes and everything, you will see a major way you're going to interact and avail all of your government services. Last but not the least, I'm thinking there's a reverse urbanization going on. Till about a year back, there were a lot of people from rural who are actually looking at coming into the urban areas in order to ensure that they make their livelihood. But you'll start seeing the reverse urbanization. What I mean by that is the real estate prices have already shot up. Now, people are going to start moving away from your urban areas to the rural areas to save better and still stay at the same productivity, because your work from home is going to be encouraged more and more. Take the example of TCS again. They are already talking about 50% to 80% of the workforce being work from home by 2025. Isn't that great? You're actually at the cusp of this digital wave, which was never witnessed earlier, and it was completely unprecedented.
Thank you, Jyotsna. Those were real insightful conversations. Primarily talking about the healthcare aspect, education, and the new concept that you introduced, reverse urbanization. That is more from the business standpoint. But when you talk from the customer side, how do you think digital transformation will elevate or enhance the overall customer experience?
See, I'll probably take a personal example of mine. Way back in 2015, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he announced about digital campaign, I was actually blown away by the kind of vision that they have created about connecting every village, every town, and more importantly, every citizen of India. But I felt it was a very distant dream, right? It was not something that was easily achievable, at least in my mind of it. So as part of my work, I was part of an anthropology study. Now, a lot of you guys might ask me what an anthropology study. Anthropology study is the study of humans, culture, society, and geography that influences their decision making. Okay, going back, I was part of this anthropology study where we had done this as part of one of our NGO engagement. So where we wanted to see how the initiatives that are being given by the government, take the example of Swachh Bharat, where you're kind of constructing the toilets and ensuring the cleanliness of the toilet. How do you actually ensure that these initiatives by the government are taken to the last mile, which is your rural areas and all of that? And not just that, there are a lot of education initiatives that the government is coming up. So how do you ensure that all of these are taking part? So that was one of the anthropology study that was there. So I had the opportunity of visiting Chhattisgarh, and we had visited few villages in a forest which is close to Bilaspur. So you're essentially talking about the poorest of the poor people, the vulnerable people in this particular area. And I'll give you some of my examples. So we met these children at Anganwadi. Anganwadi is typically your rural childcare center, and this Anganwadi was colored in bright colors, and it looked extremely beautiful. All the kids were neatly dressed and they were waiting for us to come in. A majority of the kids were actually very confident and engaging us in the conversations. In my own overconfidence, right? So I had this iPhone on my hand. I just kind of showed it to them and I asked them, do you know what this is? My intention was I wanted to check whether they know what a mobile phone was not. So one of the smart boys, he asked me, can you please remove the cover? I removed the cover and immediately he told me it's an iPhone 10. It took him approximately just 2 seconds to identify that. That's when it was a revelation for me, because we understood that Reliance Jio and Oppo, for example, have actually tied up and they have really amassed this entire market. Every particular villager in this particular one have got their own phones, and which are the Oppo smartphones that you're essentially talking about. And they're also equipped with Reliance Jio. Would you believe if I tell you that they use speech where they say, hey Google, give me methi paratha. So it reads out and they're going ahead and cooking it. Today we struggle as urbans. We go ahead and we struggle as to how do we put in this particular text, what is the exact word to search and everything. They have actually simplified it. This, according to me, the uncomplicating it part of it, like how Ranbir Kapoor says it, right? Uncomplicated, silly. Uncomplication part of it is what I think is your customer experience, Sudhakar. And is it digital transformation? I don't want to use a lot of these big words and everything, right? But yes, digital is kind of enhancing the experience, ensuring that every other service that you want is being delivered to the right person at the right time and the right quantity that is required.
Excellent, Jyotsna. Thanks for that. Yeah, I think any business transformation that we talk about, we should be aiming to uncomplicate things. And in the remotest possible villages, if they are having the accessibility to wealth of data, the new oil, like you mentioned, using their phones and internet, and if they can do all these searches using speech, that is a transformation. And like you rightly said, whether we call it a digital transformation or not is up to us.
So Jyotsna, wonderful points. those who are working on digital transformation initiatives should focus on anybody and everybody. We are not trying to target a particular segment of people or a particular community, and whatever the products that will be part of the digital transformation should be easy to use, and I'm excited how the world is going to look like. Coming to the employment part, employees fear that they might lose jobs because of robotic process automation, the RPA and other automation initiatives, so which are part of this digital transformation. And what is your take on this?
See, firstly, I think RPA is definitely going to automate many mundane activities, and it is going to free up a lot of capacity, but it is not going to happen overnight. The freeing up of the capacity will happen in bits and pieces for certain parts of the process, and definitely not for the entire job. Let's take the example again of a claims processing, right? A health claims process. So if you look at the conditions and everything, they probably allow about 15,000 rupees to be claimed towards any eye surgery. Now, some of the smart guys, what they do is they probably get the surgery done for one eye, claim the 15,000, and again they go ahead and then claim for the other eye. What is actually happening is because the risk factor is increasing, there's the premium that every individual have to pay subsequently increases because of these kind of a fraudulent claims and everything that is happening. Now, when RPA comes into picture, it would actually be able to take away all of these mundane tasks, right? It is able to compare it and tell you that this particular person has already undergone a particular eye surgery and his eligibility of 15,000 has already been used. So essentially, what are we talking about? We are freeing up again a lot of activity for the agent to go ahead and work on what matters, which is trying to provide right health insurance to the right people at the lowest cost possible, and also de-risking themselves as an organization itself. This is the first part of it. The second part of it, I think personally, again, RPA cannot be effective without human intelligence. At the end of the day, humans, we still consider our brain to be much, much superior than that of the machine. So humans can definitely utilize artificial intelligence and machine learning, but they are a very long away from ensuring humans remain in control of the workplaces. Now, third part of it, technology can actually create new jobs. This particular data explosion that we are essentially talking about will create new jobs, which will focus on analyzing, monitoring, managing data, and also new technology that would be required to ensure that the ever-evolving compliance and regulations are also met. So just to conclude, the rise of robotic process automation is actually liberating people from unproductive work while creating completely new industries and new service lines. Enhancing human skills is more effective and sustainable way of working rather than trying to automate everything. That, in my opinion, we don't need to be overly worried about the RPA replacing the jobs.
Great insights, Jyotsna. So just to summarize, RPA is going to take the mundane, repetitive, redundant tasks so that humans can focus on something creative and the intelligent tasks of it. Thank you for your insights.
Jyotsna, with the background provided by you, I'm sure our audience, who are primarily the fresh graduates and young professionals, are now super excited with this digital transformation. Can you share a little bit about what kind of roles they can pursue in the digital transformation space and what skills they should be focusing on?
Okay. See, essentially, if you look at it, digital transformation is vast, right? It is like an ocean. However, let's probably constrain this particular conversation only to the digital transformation strategy itself. If you're actually going to participate in the strategy, there are certain roles that you require, right? The first one is a digital transformation leader. If you remember, I talked about how we work with the CXOs in order to define what is their current need, what is their pain points that they have got, how do they go ahead and identify what is a competitor analysis and everything. Your digital transformation leader is going to set that vision. Then you need the change champion. Again, this is something that I referred. You need to have a change champion who is going to work very closely with the change champions of the organization to ensure that the right culture and the right change management is in place to ensure that every digital initiative that is going to come up eventually is going to be embraced by the organization. You need the technical engineer. See, how much ever digital you talk about it, technology is an enabler. So you definitely need one technical engineer who can understand what is the current as-is scenario of their technology technology architecture or systems and infrastructure, and who can define what is your future state again. You need a business expert. Now, if you don't understand that business, if, for example, you can't bring in a retail guy, put him into a financial domain like a bank and tell him that, Pepsi did this, now HDFC Bank should do it. It doesn't work that way, because the systems or the customer personas that you talk about, everything differs by vertical. So you need to have a functional expert or a business expert that you're talking about. Then you need, as we were talking about, data is your new oil. So how do you ensure that the data that you have within the organization can be monetized? What do I mean by monetization? I'm talking about how can you make more money out of your data? Can you cross-sell to some of your existing customers? Can you identify new customers to go after? Those are some of the things that your data architect would be able to help. Now, UX and CX, right? So the customer experience professional is the one who is going to define how simple and frictionless is this experience in terms of the customers interacting with yours. We want this to be so silly that, people don't apply their brain for onboarding or interacting with any of your systems. But not the list that we are talking about is the financial analyst and your critical hacker. Financial analyst is one who is going to tell you whether the investments that you're going to put into these digital initiatives are warranted or not, and how do you justify that particular cost. Your critical hacker is one person who is actually going to hack into your system genuinely to see what is going wrong in your system and how do you fix it. It's not like any other hacker, but the reason we call them as a critical hacker is to ensure that they can find all those vulnerabilities, all those loopholes which need to be fixed in order for you to embark on your digital journey.
Thanks, Jyotsna. You highlighted many roles like financial analyst, critical hacker, user experience professional, business expert, technical engineer. So to acquire all these skill sets, what are the avenues or platforms that our listeners can actually explore to know more about digital transformation?
First part of the digital strategy and consulting, if you guys are coming from an MBA background, a lot of this is actually covered part of your syllabus itself, which is your financial analysis part of it, the business part of it, how is the business run part of it, and so on. And you need to be a techno-functional person in this particular world. You can't be a person who says that I'm just a business person and I'm just a technology person. Look around you. There are a lot of courses that are happening. There. If you go to Ameerpet, you have a lot of courses that are happening, or even online, there are a lot of courses. You have fantastic collaborations that are going on with MITs, Harvard, who are actually providing you all these kind of online courses. You should look for those that would enable you to jumpstart your career. So look for microservices architecture, for example, because this is what enables that however small your platform is, it is scalable because you are actually allowing your platform to be integrated with your tech organizations which are available there so that you are quickly able to market it. Look for microservices. Look for cloud. You already have a lot of tools that are being provided by AWS, your Azure and all of that. So in fact, if you look at it, Azure ML is there, which is going to give you a jump start on your machine learning part of it itself. Also look at IoT platforms. Some of the IoT platforms that I can think are ThingWorx platform by PTC. That's a fantastic one for you to get started in order to understand what kind of a data will come in from connected things. What is a connected thing? It could be as simple as the AC that is sitting in your house to the large machinery that will be there in your manufacturing itself. And business analyst is another key central role that we kind of look at it because he's the person who is going to be the bridge between your business and technology part of it. So look out for business analyst kind of a role. That would be great. There are a lot of design thinking, customer experience, anthropology study courses that are actually provided. Again, you can look for the customer experience part of it. And then there are cybersecurity roles that are there. There are data scientist roles that are there. And if you look at the digital delivery part of it, become a Scrum Master. If that is something that is interesting for you, transform yourself into a Scrum Master. And or a product owner who understands what this particular product is, and then you can actually take it over from there. Go for automation testing, for example. You've got the likes of Selenium and others, which is very, very advanced than what your manual testing is all about. Go for automation testing. The opportunity opportunities are unlimited. There are a lot of providers who are there who can actually equip you with this. Think about what are the opportunities that are there, what you want to go after. And at the end of this one, I think my LinkedIn profile is going to be provided to you. Get in touch with me. More than happy to help any one of you.
Thank you, Jyotsna, for sharing all the avenues and platforms that are available. And thanks for the offer that we can directly reach out to you on LinkedIn. I'm sure our listeners will be delighted to have that opportunity. Jyotsna, let's switch back a little bit onto the personal side of it as well. We always talk about this. Being a woman leader is little more complex. Mother of 2 children and serving as a senior executive, along with your passion for mentoring the startups, I'm sure it is not easy for you to manage the home, the professional side, and also your passion like startups and all. How do you manage your schedule and priorities? I'm sure experience will help our diverse audience to aspire better.
Essentially, if you look at any of the freshers, right, when they join the organizations, the women ratio is actually very high compared to men. But as the years of experience increases, we see that the women's ratio is always dropping off, right? And with women deprioritizing their work life. That is one of the reasons why you see that, the women leadership in organizations being a mere percentage of what men are. As a woman in tech, especially as you pointed out rightly, a mother of 2 very ambitious kids, the lines between our work life and home life can always be very blurry. And this is often, it's like, we accept as this is a package deal. Working hard, always rising to the occasion, multitasking, and so on. And probably very hard on myself also, trying to be the perfect daughter, wife, daughter-in-law, mother, and aunt. By the way, I've got several fantastically cute nieces and nephews whom I love to bits. And I think there was one stage where I decided that I need to really take a pause, because I've learned that I can't keep everyone happy. And I realized that it's okay. No one around me is actually expecting me to be perfect. And I decided that, I have to be kind to myself, spend time on my own health, because only when I'm healthy, I'll be able to take care of my family. And self-reflection, I find a hobby that brings you a joy. So the mentoring of the startups that you're talking about, or not the TikTok videos, but I love doing the dub smash videos and so on. And it has been a long time since I've actually compared myself with anybody, be it in terms of, the looks, or the free time, or the enjoyment. I just find a balance between my work-life ambition and my personal life. I think it is also very important that we acknowledge who is enabling this particular balance to us on a day-to-day basis. It could be your at work life, your colleagues, your boss, and some of your friends that you have. Personally, for me, I contribute my success any day to my dad to start with. He brought me up as equivalent to any of the other boys. In fact, more so, he thought that for every small achievement of mine, he was the first person who used to be super happy at every promotion, at every hike that I used to get. And my husband, he has given me a tremendous amount of support. There have been several occasions where he kind of, dropped off his travel plans. He's equally busy. He dropped off his travel plans, and he always stood like a pillar. Last but not the least, my father-in-law is somebody that I really wanted to call out, because he typically wanted all the women to explore the opportunities that are available for them, go after them rather than sitting in front of the TV for the Saas Bahu series. Especially now, right, in this tiring time, you're sitting at home, you have to balance your work, you also have to balance your cleaning, which typically your maids take care of it, and also the cooking part of it. And what I've realized is it's okay if your kids and come in front of your conference calls. I've seen that a lot of my colleagues are pretty acceptable about it. In fact, they have shown a lot of interest in knowing who my kids are, what their hobbies and everything are. And it is perfectly okay for me to go ahead and tell them that I need a break to have lunch with my husband and kids. And finally, there have been occasions in the recent time when I had to interrupt one of the conference calls, take a 10 minutes break just so that, I can clean my utensils. A positive side of this COVID-19, to be candid, is the chef in my husband has come out. He doesn't even know where the kitchen is. I don't think he has ever cooked anything in his life, in his entire 45 years of his life. But yesterday he experimented with a Mexican burrito bowl. It's his first time. And believe me, it took a lot pain for me rather than him, because I was his assistant and he was the chief chef over there. But it was fun. And it is these kind of moments that you can cherish, right, when you kind of look back for all the tiring time that you're actually facing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. These COVID-19, the unprecedented times actually enabled many of us to explore the things that we never wanted to do. And I'm sure with Kiran's passion about everything, his experience and his experiment about the Mexican burrito bowl was really amazing. Excellent. Jyotsna, with all these amazing things that go around you, what is one quote or anecdote that stuck in your mind forever?
Well, you know who said this, okay? And I'm not sure if I'm repeating this correctly or not. But one thing that kind of strikes me quite often or every other day is everyone dream of success, right? Every single individual born definitely has dreamt of success. But only some dare to wake up and work hard for it. Be that one single person who can change your own dreams and make that into a reality.
Great. That is well said. I think it was Steve Jobs, but I may be wrong. But Jyotsna, as always, it's amazing and it's always an enthralling experience to interact with you. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation in your busy schedule from both personal and professional sides. It was indeed a great conversation with various aspects of digital transformation. And again, thank you very much for the energy and the passion that you bring into any conversation and any interaction. Really appreciate you taking time.
Thank you, Sudha.
Thank you, Jyotsna.
Thanks, Naveen.
All right, so dear listeners, to know more about our speakers and the content, visit or follow us on social media or feel free to email us and we will be happy to share further details with you. So this brings us to the trivia segment of this episode. And today's trivia is about creative thinking. In 2010, the United States Air Force used 1760 PS3, that is PlayStation 3s, to build a supercomputer for the Department of Defense. And you know the reason why they used PS3s? Because it was more cost efficient and green. So this is something like a technology made for a purpose but being used for a different purpose. So hats off to the team. So if you'd like to share any trivias, please feel free to share them through email, theguidingvoice4u@gmail.com, or you can SMS us or WhatsApp us on India number 9494587187. We will not only share the best trivias in future episodes, but we'll also announce your names on this show. Again, folks, we are open for suggestions on topics that you would like to hear from us through email. Our email address is theguidingvoice4u@gmail.com. I repeat, the email address is theguidingvoice4u@gmail.com. And you may also WhatsApp us on India number 9494587187. Request you to like our page on Facebook, facebook.com/theguidingvoice4u, and follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/guidingvoice, to stay tuned about future episodes. There is more in store. Until next time, have a wonderful time. Take care and be safe. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much.